Hey, 4-H members, I want you to imagine you're looking out your window out at a bird feeder or bird water, or just looking out into your backyard, and suddenly you see movement. And as you gaze out the window, you're now looking at this beautiful red bird that's flown in and is right in front of you. Is it a northern cardinal? Is it a summer tanager? Maybe it's a purple finch. How do you know? How do you know what to look for to make sure that you are identifying that bird correctly that's out in your backyard? Hey, my name's Kevin Allen, and I'm a professor at Oklahoma State University. And I also work with the State 4-H program, where I work with natural resource programming. Bird identification has become it's a growing hobby of mine, and I just wanted to share some information with you to help you to identify birds that you may see in your backyard. You know, it might seem a little bit frustrating at first, but once you get the basics down, the process really becomes easier and easier. Bird identification, it involves looking through clues, just like to solve a problem. You sort through clues to arrive at a bird's identity. It's a process of eliminating things in which you eliminate the bird it's not the one you're looking for. Most of these clues that we're going to use today focus on size, shape, color, and habitat. Now, once you start gaining confidence and experience, you'd be surprised at how effective you are at using characteristics to identify different birds. And the more birds you identify, the easier and easier that process becomes. Now, admittedly, I would love to be out in the field with you, walking around, trying to teach you about bird identification, but that's just not the reality that we have right now. So I'm going to do my best to share some stuff online. I promise not to take a lot of time going through, more like a class, but it's the opportunity for you to learn. And again, just some very basics to help you with beginning in your bird identification. So if you give me a minute, I'll switch over and I'll get this started. So we're going to talk about bird ID basics. And again, this is just a very, very basic teaching on things to help you become more effective at identifying birds. First thing we want to talk about is size. Size refers to the measurement of a bird from the bill tip, if you look here on this American robin, all the way down to the end of the tail. That's what we refer to as size. Now, size is a little bit trickier than you may think. Many times you don't know how far away a bird is, or how near, or that big rock that it's near. How big is that rock, or the tree limb that it's sitting on. Throw in that the feathers may be ruffled up or fluffed up, or the bird's hunkered down in the grass, and it's easy to get fooled. But with a few tricks, you can still use size as an ID key. Many bird watchers find it useful to compare the bird in question to a bird that you are familiar with. It helps you know if the bird you're looking at, is it smaller than a sparrow, a robin, or a crow? And it helps to choose between two similar species, such as the downy and the hairy woodpecker. And we'll talk about those here in just a minute. The next thing we want to talk about is shape. And shape is a great characteristic to use in bird watching. Is the body thin or fat? Is the tail long or short? And what about the legs? Are they long legs or short legs? And the bill or the beak, is it long? Is it short? Is it thin or thick? Is it long and broad, or is it hooked at the tip? Now, looking at these shapes, you can probably even identify a couple of the birds on here that you're maybe very familiar with, that you've already seen, and you're going, oh, I already know what that is. So you may be way ahead of the curve here. Often you don't need to see any color at all to know what kind of bird you're looking at. Silhouettes can quickly tell you a bird's size, the proportions, and the postures, and quickly rule out many groups of birds, even ones of nearly identical or overall size. Now, this combination of size and shape is one of the most useful tools in bird identification. Many times we want to be drawn to watching birds for those wonderful colors and those bright colors that we see, or their fascinating behaviors, maybe the way they fly or the way they act on the ground. But when it comes to making identification, size and shape are the first pieces of information that you should examine. Now, this is a good example of size and shape. It is the downy and the hairy woodpecker. When you first look at these birds, they look very similar. I mean, they have similar markings, somewhat similar markings. They, may have that red spot on the back of their head. Might be hard to tell the difference at first, but by using that size and shape, you'll notice, and hard to notice in this picture maybe, but the hairy woodpecker is larger than the downy woodpecker. And you'll notice that this distinct longer bill on the hairy woodpecker, different from the downy woodpecker. So that's a good way to use size and shape to help identify birds that are very, similar in color or markings. Now, we talked about color and that red bird that flew into your sight. What kind of red bird is it? Many people say, well, it's just a red bird, but it does have a specific name. And you can start looking at some of the characteristics of these different birds to help identify which species or which bird it is. So we have 3 red birds here, and you'll notice down in this corner we have some unique color here around the bill. You see this black that you don't see on the other birds, and this bill is red where the other ones are not. And we have this little crest right up here. So that's something that we can use to help identify that bird, to help, especially between these two, because they might be very similar in that red color, but they have a different bill and no crest and no black marking. Now, between these birds, this one's going to be a little bit larger. But you'll notice that the red marking on the breast is a little bit different than the color here. So color is probably the most noticeable marks on birds, but it's important to note where that color is located. Many birds have a solid color, while others have a colored head, or their throat, or their breast, or their rump. And often these colors create distinct patterns that may look like streaks or spots. So we go further on and we look at these 3 birds, and now you can say, oh yes, maybe I recognize that as the northern cardinal, or I recognize this one at the top as a purple finch, or maybe even the summer tanager, you recognize that. These are all birds that you can see here in Oklahoma. And again, being able to look at those size and shapes and differences between the birds are going to help you to be more effective at identifying the type of bird that you're looking at. Now, we have lots of birds, and this is just a list of some common birds that you'll find here in Oklahoma. And a lot of these you've probably seen already. We have the northern cardinal up here. A lot of people recognize that, or the blue jay, or you may even come down here to the American robin. But sometimes, we start looking and go, well, we call that bird a sparrow. Well, we have lots of different types of sparrows here in Oklahoma. Is it a house sparrow? Or is it a white crowned sparrow? Or maybe it's a Harris sparrow. And they all have some different markings and some different colorings that will help you to identify those. So as you progress and get more experience with your bird ID, you're going to be able to make those distinctions easier, and you'll be recognizing different colors and shapes and patterns as you go along. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is habitat. And just as ducks prefer water and robins, you might see them on your grassy lawn, most birds prefer a specific habitat for feeding and nesting and living. It's important to notice where in the habitat that bird is viewed. That bird might be a ground bird, or it could be way up high in the tree. If it's on the lake, is it swimming close to the shore, or is it staying out in the middle of the lake? These are subtle differences that can help you in making bird identification. Now, habitat is a broad term, and it includes the 4 necessities for a bird's survival. And those are food, water, shelter, and space. And we talk about nesting area here. And these features can vary greatly between different types of habitats. Bird watchers, or people that identify birds, use habitat as a tool for bird identification. Once you learn the habitat type in which a species or a group of species live, you'll be better able to eliminate other possibilities and identify the birds you see. Now, in Oklahoma, we are very fortunate to have a wide variety of habitat types across our state. And starting in the east, we have the deciduous forest, which is predominantly oak hickory trees. To the south of there, we start transitioning more to a pine in the southeast mixed forest. We have the woodland area, often called the cross timbers in Oklahoma, and this is dominated by post oak and blackjack oak. And then we get into our grasslands. So we have the tall grass and the mixed prairie. And way out west, you have the short grass prairie. And intermixed within all of this is our wetlands, where we have bogs and marshes, and you might have swampy areas down in the southeast of Oklahoma, lakes and ponds, and all of those things that birds use for water, and certain species are attracted to water and need that to have for that to be a good habitat for them. Well, like I said, I wanted to be brief, and I hope you've enjoyed learning a little about the ways to identify birds. Remember, this was just the basics. As you become more experienced, you will learn to use field marks on the head and the wings, the bills and the beaks. You'll be able to look at various bird behaviors as well as songs to assist you in your bird identification. Shared a lot of information today. A lot of this comes from the Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology. You can get it there on the web. They have a lot of great information about birds. However, there are many great field guides and websites available to help you in learning more and more about birds. This happens to be a picture I was lucky enough to get. I took it with my cell phone and got the backside of the bird, but from that long tail, you can tell that that's the scissor-tail flycatcher from Oklahoma. So you probably see a lot of these flying around here in the state. Now's the opportunity for you to share back with us. So as you're watching birds in your yard, or if you're taking walks with your family, use your camera or cell phone to take a picture, share them with us on the Virtual Clovers Facebook page. If you know what kind of bird it is, share that name in the comments. And if you can't ID the bird, post it anyways. We'll have someone help you identify that bird, just so you have learned correctly what that bird's correct name is, and you won't be misidentified in the future. So, hey, 4-Hers, I hope you have a great time outside, walking around, looking at birds, and experience the beauty that Oklahoma has to offer. We hope you're safe out there, and we look forward to seeing your birds. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.